Hey guys, today we step into a world that's buzzing with noise. Screens light up, notifications flash, voices overlap, and everyone is in a rush to say something, to prove something, to be heard. But here's the twist: real power, the kind that draws people to you without effort, doesn't begin with what you say at all. It begins with what you see, not just with your eyes, but with your attention. Think about walking into a room where everyone is talking, laughing, or scrolling. Most people glance around, but their mind is still on themselves: what to say, how to stand, how to fit in. You, on the other hand, pause. You take a breath. You notice the subtle details: the shoulders slumped in the corner, the quick flicker of eyes between two people, the rhythm of laughter that sounds just a little forced. In that moment, you're already steps ahead, because you've shifted from performing to perceiving. That's where social intelligence is born. You begin to realize that observation is not passive. It's active, alive, and deeply human. Babies come into this world observing everything before they can even form words. They study faces, tone, rhythm, and energy. But as you grow up, society trains you to speak more, act more, prove more, and you forget the gift of seeing. To rebuild that gift, you have to train your attention, like a muscle. Observation is not flashy, but it's sharp. It cuts through noise. Imagine being able to sense the unspoken mood of a room, the hidden discomfort in a smile, or the genuine spark in someone's eyes when they talk about what they love. That sensitivity doesn't make you weak. It makes you powerful in a quiet, undeniable way. Look closely. A friend says, "I'm fine," but their voice has a pause you almost miss. Their jaw clenches for a second. Their hands fidget with a sleeve. Anyone can hear the words. Few can catch the signals. And when you're the one who does, you earn a kind of trust most people can't buy with charm or cleverness. Because here's the truth: people rarely reveal themselves in what they say, but they always reveal themselves in how they move, how they breathe, and how they react. Observation is learning to catch the music beneath the lyrics. But here's where most people trip. They think observation means judgment. It doesn't. It's not about labeling someone as nervous, arrogant, insecure, or strong. It's about understanding. It's about saying, "I see that there's more happening here than the words suggest." You start asking yourself quiet questions. Why does she avoid eye contact when certain topics come up? Why does he tap his foot only when authority figures enter the room? Why does this person light up when they talk about art, but shrink when the conversation shifts to family? Those patterns are like maps. They guide you to empathy, and empathy is the root of every real connection. Of course, to observe others well, you have to observe yourself first. Can you catch the way your tone sharpens when you feel ignored? Do you notice your own breath speeding up when you're nervous? Do you realize how often you scroll your phone when silence stretches too long? Self-observation isn't about criticizing yourself. It's about knowing your patterns so they don't own you. Because once you can recognize your own habits, you'll notice them in others. That's the beginning of emotional resonance. You stop reacting blindly, and you start responding with choice. Now, let's make this practical. Suppose you're in a meeting. A colleague speaks confidently, but as they finish, they pull back in their chair and cross their arms. Most people would only hear the confidence in the voice, but you notice the retreat in the body language. Maybe they're protecting themselves from criticism. Maybe their words were strong, but their belief in them is fragile. And if you catch that, you can respond in a way that supports them instead of challenging them too harshly. You don't just hear the argument. They feel that you understand their unspoken need for safety. That's influence without force. Or picture a casual conversation with a friend. They laugh at your joke, but their smile doesn't reach their eyes. Instead of pushing the moment along, you pause. You lean in gently and say, "Hey, are you sure you're okay?" Suddenly, you've opened a door. And often, that single door is what people are secretly waiting for. Someone to see through the performance and meet them where they really are. Observation sharpens when you slow down. The world teaches you to multitask, to move fast, to plan your reply while someone else is talking. But real observation means setting that aside. It means giving your full attention like a spotlight, scanning not just the words, but the pauses, the tone, the posture, the micro-expressions. It feels like stillness, but it's actually the most alive thing you can do. And yes, it's uncomfortable at first. You'll notice things you didn't want to see. The friend who always interrupts when they're insecure. The coworker who hides their exhaustion under endless positivity. The loved one who smiles wide but never relaxes their shoulders. But this discomfort is growth. Because the moment you see clearly, you can no longer be fooled by surfaces. You begin to interact with people as they are, not as they present themselves. Let's go deeper. Observation is also about energy. Every room has a pulse. Every person carries a rhythm. You can feel when a space is light, open, and safe, or when it's heavy with unspoken tension. You can feel when someone's words are enthusiastic, but their energy is drained. You don't need mystical powers. You just need awareness. When you walk into a space and sense its atmosphere before anyone says a word, you hold a subtle kind of power. You're not controlled by the noise. You're guided by the undercurrent. Think of it like music. On the surface, you hear instruments and lyrics, but underneath is a beat that holds everything together. Most people only hear the obvious, but once you learn to listen for the bass line, the steady rhythm beneath, you experience the whole song differently. Social intelligence works the same way. Observation tunes you into the rhythm beneath people's words and actions. Now, here's something vital. Observation without intention is just curiosity. Observation with care becomes connection. You don't train this muscle so you can manipulate or outsmart people. You do it to meet them more deeply, to build trust, to create safety. When someone feels that you've seen them, the real them, beyond the mask, they lean closer, not away. They feel relief, and in a world full of noise, that's magnetic. But don't forget, you must balance observation with humility. The moment you assume you know everything from a single gesture, you slip into arrogance. A clenched jaw could mean stress, anger, or even a toothache. Averted eyes could mean shame, shyness, or simple distraction. The key is not to jump to conclusions, but to gather patterns over time. True observers connect dots, not snapshots. They notice what repeats, what shifts, what deepens. They don't label, they learn. So how do you practice? Start small. When you meet someone, notice their breathing, fast, slow, shallow. Notice where their feet point, toward you, toward the door. Notice their pace of speaking. Do they rush, pause, stumble? Then notice yourself. How do you respond when silence falls? Do you rush to fill it? Do you shift your weight? Do you smile nervously? This is not about perfection. It's about building awareness, like a daily habit. Here's an exercise. Go sit in a cafe, and watch. Not to eavesdrop, but to observe. Watch how strangers greet each other. Notice how some lean in while others lean back. Notice who checks their phone every few seconds and who forgets it on the table. Notice the bursts of laughter. Are they free or forced? Then reflect. What does this tell you about comfort, about confidence, about presence? Suddenly, everyday life becomes a classroom. Every space becomes training for your social vision. And slowly, something changes. You walk into rooms differently. You no longer feel the urge to dominate conversations. You're not caught up rehearsing your lines in your head. You're still grounded and aware. You notice first. You speak later. And when you do speak, your words carry more weight because they come from understanding, not assumption. This is the quiet shift that separates those who simply socialize from those who connect. Anyone can talk, anyone can post, but very few can see. And in a world starved for real attention, the one who sees becomes unforgettable. So let this be your starting place. Before you chase charisma, before you memorize conversation tricks, before you push yourself to impress, just stop. Breathe, observe, notice others, notice yourself. Rebuild the muscle you were born with, but may have forgotten. Because once you reclaim the power of observation, every interaction changes, every connection deepens, and every room you enter begins to shift. You've already begun sharpening your attention. You're learning that the real story people tell is not in their words, but in the small details, the pauses, the movements they don't even realize they're making. Now, you step deeper into the world of the unspoken, because while observation is noticing what's in front of you, reading the unspoken is noticing what lies beneath. Think of conversation like an iceberg. Words are just the tip, floating above the surface. Most people only interact with that visible piece. But below the waterline lies the vast bulk, the tone, the hesitation, the nervous laugh, the glance away, the tightening of hands. That's where truth hides. If you stay on the surface, you miss the entire shape of the thing. But if you learn to sense beneath, you can see people as they really are, not just as they want to appear. Take the classic phrase, "I'm fine." On the surface, it's clean and simple. But does the tone rise at the end, as if seeking approval? Does it fall flat, like a stone dropping into silence? Do the eyes look down, while the words push upward? Each layer adds meaning, and the most skilled communicators listen to all of it, not just the syllables. But here's where the deeper challenge begins. Reading the unspoken isn't just about spotting signs. It's about holding them with care. Most people, when they sense tension, rush to fix it or expose it. They might say, "You're lying," or "You're clearly upset," and the other person retreats. Social intelligence, however, means noticing without forcing. It means letting someone know, gently, through your presence, that you see them, and they can share more if they want to. Imagine being with a friend at dinner. They laugh, but it feels hollow. You catch it. Instead of calling them out, you lean in slightly, soften your voice, and say, "You seem a little off tonight. Want to talk?" That one sentence is an invitation, and often, it's enough for them to finally let go of what they've been holding. There's a rhythm to the unspoken, and once you tune into it, you realize how much is said in silence. Think about pauses. Someone answers quickly, without thought. That's one kind of signal. Someone answers slowly, with hesitation. That's another. A pause can mean they're searching for truth. It can mean they're holding back. It can mean they're deciding if they feel safe with you. Most people rush through those spaces. But if you can sit in them, if you can let the silence stretch without jumping in, you discover what the other person might not even know they're ready to say. Silence is a language of its own. In fact, silence often reveals more than words ever could. Someone avoids answering your question. Someone smiles, but doesn't reply. Someone leaves a gap after a statement, as if daring you to fill it. If you can hold still and resist the urge to cover that silence, you often uncover truths people didn't even realize they were showing. But here's a crucial point. The unspoken language is not about paranoia. It's not about assuming every crossed arm means defensiveness, or every lack of eye contact means guilt. That's a rookie mistake. Real skill comes from patterns, from context, from listening with empathy. A person might cross their arms because they're cold, not closed. They might look away because they're thinking, not hiding. Your job isn't to accuse. Your job is to understand. So how do you practice reading between the lines? Start by pairing observation with curiosity. When someone says one thing, but their body says another, don't jump to conclusions. Instead, ask yourself gently, what might this mean? What might they be holding back? What emotion could live under these words? Then, instead of reacting to the surface, respond to the possible truth beneath. For example, a coworker interrupts you sharply in a meeting. Most people would react defensively, but you notice their face flushes, their breathing quickens, and their hands tremble slightly. Underneath that interruption is likely anxiety, maybe even fear of losing control. Instead of snapping back, you steady your tone and say, I hear you. Let's slow down and make sure we're clear. With that, you lower the temperature and the entire energy shifts. That's not manipulation. That's presence. Another layer of the unspoken language is mirroring. When two people are deeply connected, they unconsciously match each other's tone, posture, even breathing. Watch two close friends or partners. They lean in at the same angle, laugh at the same rhythm, sometimes even sip their drinks at the same time. That's not coincidence. It's connection. And here's the key. You can use mirroring intentionally to create trust. If someone speaks softly and you soften your voice, they feel safe. If someone leans forward and you mirror subtly, they feel understood. The trick is subtlety. Do it too obviously, and it feels fake. Do it with presence, and it feels like harmony. Mirroring done right is not about control. It's about saying without words, I'm with you. But perhaps the most important skill in reading the unspoken is learning to listen with your whole body. When you're truly present, you pick up signals others miss. You feel when someone's energy rises with joy or drops with worry. You sense when laughter is real or when it's a mask. And this requires you to be still inside. If your mind is racing with your own insecurities, you'll miss the cues. If your ego is busy planning your reply, you'll overlook the truth. Stillness sharpens perception. Now, let's expand on why this matters. People crave to be understood. They want someone to notice when their smile hides sadness, when their yes is really a no, when their silence is a cry for space. But most people never get that gift. They move through life feeling unseen, unheard, unrecognized. When you learn to read the unspoken and respond with empathy, you become the rare person who makes others feel truly known. That is magnetic. That is leadership. That is love in action. And it's not just about relationships. This skill transforms every area of life. In negotiations, you sense hesitation behind firm words and know when to push or pause. In friendships, you recognize when a joke is covering pain. In family, you hear the unsaid worry behind silence. In leadership, you notice who's shrinking in a meeting and give them a voice. Reading the unspoken doesn't just connect you, it empowers you to act wisely. Here's a practice you can try today. When someone speaks to you, repeat their words in your mind while you focus on everything else. Notice their eyes, their breathing, their hands. Listen to their pauses as if the silence is part of the sentence. Watch their face when the topic changes. Then ask yourself quietly, what are they really saying here? What are they not saying? You don't need to answer out loud. You just need to hold the awareness. Over time, this becomes second nature. But remember, reading the unspoken comes with responsibility. You will see things others don't. You will hear sadness in a smile, feel tension in a handshake, notice anxiety in a laugh, and you can't always fix it. You're not here to solve everyone's hidden struggles. You're here to hold space, to meet people with presence, to respond with wisdom. That alone is a gift. And sometimes, your greatest act of intelligence is to say nothing, to let someone keep their mask if they're not ready to take it off, to let them have their "I'm fine" because they're not ready for more. Social intelligence is not about prying. It's about sensing, respecting, and waiting. When the time is right, they'll open. And they'll remember that you didn't push, you simply stayed. So as you walk forward, remind yourself, the unspoken is everywhere. In the pause before a word, in the quick flicker of eyes, in the silence after laughter, in the way someone changes posture when a certain topic arises. You don't need superpowers. You need presence. And once you train that presence, the world of human connection opens wider than you ever imagined. Because in the end, what people truly long for is not someone who talks well, but someone who listens deeply, even to the things you've begun to notice what lies beneath words, the pauses, the tones, the flickers of emotion that escape even the most practiced face. But awareness by itself isn't enough. What you do with it matters more. This is where social intelligence shifts from passive to active, from observation to presence. And the key difference between those who struggle and those who connect lies in one simple choice. Do you react or do you respond? A reaction is quick. It's raw. It shoots out of you like a reflex before your mind has caught up. Someone criticizes you, and before you even think, your words fire back. Someone cuts you off in traffic, and your horn blares. Someone gives you a cold look, and you snap into defensiveness. A reaction feels satisfying for a moment, but it almost always creates more heat than light. It escalates. It turns a spark into a fire. A response, on the other hand, is different. A response has breath in it. It has space. It carries awareness. A response pauses long enough to consider not just what you feel, but what the moment needs. It doesn't mean you swallow your emotions. It means you guide them, shape them, and release them with intention. This difference is the backbone of calm communication. Picture this. You walk into a meeting. The air is heavy. Someone has just been criticized, and now everyone else is tense, shifting in their chairs. In that moment, you have a choice. You can add to the tension with sharp words, nervous chatter, or fake positivity. Or you can breathe. You can slow your tone. You can anchor yourself. And when you finally speak, your words carry calm, not chaos. People lean toward you, not away. That's the art of responding. Calmness is not weakness. Calmness is control. In fact, the calmer you are in stressful moments, the more powerful you become. Think of a storm. The trees that snap are the rigid ones, fighting against every gust. But the trees that bend, sway, and then return to stillness are the ones that last. Calmness is that flexibility. It says, I am not tossed around by every wind. I choose where I move. Of course, this doesn't come naturally. Most of us are wired to react. We've been conditioned to defend, to prove, to win arguments. We think raising our voice makes us strong. But true strength shows in the person who can hold their ground without raising the volume. It shows in the person who can ask a steady question in the middle of chaos. It shows in the person who can hear an insult and still reply with dignity. Take an example. Someone says to you, "You're useless." A reaction snaps back. Look who's talking. A response, though, steadies itself. You breathe, you lock eyes, and you say, "It sounds like you're upset. What's going on?" That one shift changes everything. Instead of being dragged into their storm, you invite them into your calm. Now, here's a truth worth remembering. Calm communication begins inside. If your inner world is in chaos, your words will carry chaos. You can't fake presence. People feel the tremble in your tone, the sharpness in your timing, the unease in your energy. So the real work is not just learning clever phrases. It's learning to anchor yourself before you speak. It's noticing the heat rising in your chest and choosing to breathe instead of explode. It's catching the urge to defend and choosing to listen instead. Try this practice. Before answering someone in a heated moment, silently ask yourself, am I reacting or am I responding? That question alone creates space. It forces a pause. And in that pause lives your power. Because once you've created even a sliver of space, you can choose differently. Tone plays a huge role here. You can say the same words in two ways and create opposite results. "I'm fine," in a clipped, rushed tone, tells a story of frustration. "I'm fine," spoken slowly, softly, with steady breath, carries reassurance. People always believe your tone more than your words. If your tone is calm, others relax. If your tone is sharp, they prepare to defend. Guard your tone as carefully as your words. And don't forget the power of silence. Many people are uncomfortable with it, rushing to fill every pause. But silence can be one of the strongest responses you give. In conflict, letting someone finish without interruption allows their emotion to burn out. In conversation, leaving a pause after your words gives them weight. In connection, sitting quietly beside someone can speak louder than 1,000 reassurances. Silence, when held with calm presence, is never empty. It's full of meaning. But let's be clear. Calm communication doesn't mean becoming a doormat. It doesn't mean letting others walk over you or staying quiet when you should speak. Calmness and boundaries go hand in hand. You can be firm without being harsh. You can say no without guilt. You can stand in your truth without shouting. That's the difference between weakness and wisdom. Here's how it looks in practice. Someone raises their voice at you. Instead of matching their volume, you lower yours. You slow down. You say, "I want to have this conversation, but I need it to stay respectful." That's not retreat. That's leadership. You've set a boundary without adding fuel. You've shifted the energy instead of being swallowed by it. Or imagine someone comes to you in tears, overwhelmed. The reactive instinct is to fix them, cheer them up, or give advice. The responsive instinct is to stay present, let them speak, and then say gently, "I hear you. Take your time." You haven't solved their problem. You've done something better. You've given them space to breathe, and in that space, they feel safe. Over time, your ability to respond rather than react reshapes how others see you. People begin to trust you because they know you won't explode when things get messy. They know you won't vanish when emotions rise. They know you can handle pressure without turning it into panic. You become a safe place in a loud world. That's rare. That's powerful. This skill also transforms leadership. The loudest person in the room is rarely the most influential. Influence comes from steadiness. When others lose control, the one who holds it becomes the anchor. Imagine a group argument. Voices overlap, tempers flare. Then you speak, not loudly, but slowly, clearly. Everyone turns. Why? Because your calm cuts through the noise. Your presence resets the room. But let's be honest, it takes training. Calmness doesn't happen automatically. You must build it like a muscle. Start by practicing small pauses in daily life. Before sending a text. Breathe. Before replying in conversation. Breathe. When you feel your shoulders tighten, notice it. When your voice wants to rise, lower it instead. Each moment is practice. Each pause a repetition in strengthening your emotional control. And here's the beauty. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. You no longer need to force calmness. It begins to live in you. Your baseline shifts. Stress still comes, but it doesn't own you. Anger still visits, but it doesn't drive you. Fear still whispers, but it doesn't speak for you. You begin to carry a calm that feels unshakable, and others feel it too. This doesn't mean you won't feel. You'll still hurt, still get angry, still feel fear. But instead of those emotions controlling your voice, you guide them into responses that build connection instead of breaking it. That's the art of responding. It's not emotionless, it's emotionally intelligent. So remember this: reaction is impulse, response is choice. Reaction burns bridges, response builds them. Reaction feeds chaos, response creates calm. And every day, in every interaction, you are given that choice. Next time someone pushes your buttons, ask yourself, will I let this moment control me, or will I guide it with intention? That single question might save a relationship, shift a conversation, or turn conflict into connection. And the more you choose response over reaction, the more you step into your own quiet power. The kind of power that doesn't need volume, doesn't need drama, doesn't need force. The kind of power that steadies every room you walk into. You've learned to hold your ground with calmness, to steady your voice, to pause before you react. But to truly master social intelligence, you must go even deeper, beneath behavior, beneath tone, beneath silence itself, into the realm of emotion. Because every word, every gesture, every reaction comes from one place: what a person feels. And if you can see the emotions driving the show, you'll understand people at a level that most never reach. Emotions are the engines behind action. People don't make decisions because of pure logic. They justify with logic, but they move with feeling. A purchase, a vote, a career choice, a breakup. all rooted in emotion first. The same goes for the subtle everyday choices: who they trust, who they avoid, when they open up, when they close off. If you want to connect, you can't just focus on what someone says. You have to sense what they feel. Now, here's the tricky part. Emotions rarely show up in clean, labeled boxes. They come tangled. Anger often hides fear. Confidence often masks insecurity. Humor often covers sadness. People rarely say, "I feel scared," or "I feel ashamed." Instead, they raise their voice, crack a joke, change the subject, or retreat into silence. Emotional awareness means learning to see through the disguise and recognize the beating heart underneath. Let's look at anger. On the surface, it's loud, hot, and sharp. But often, anger is just a shield. Beneath it, there's fear of being disrespected, fear of being ignored, fear of being hurt. If you only meet the anger, you'll fight back and miss the truth. But if you pause, if you ask yourself, what might this person be protecting with their anger? You gain compassion, and compassion opens doors where conflict once slammed them shut. Or take arrogance. Someone brags, dominates conversations, insists on always being right. Easy to judge, right? But arrogance often grows from insecurity. Underneath all that noise is a small voice whispering, "I'm not enough." When you see that, you stop needing to prove them wrong. Instead, you can steady yourself, listen calmly, and choose whether to engage or step back. You no longer get hooked because you see the roots, not just the branches. And then there's withdrawal, the person who avoids, who disappears, who says little. On the surface, they may seem cold, distant, or uninterested. But beneath that withdrawal might be deep anxiety, or fear of judgment, or exhaustion from battles you know nothing about. Emotional awareness lets you respond with patience instead of assumption. A simple, "I'm here if you need me," spoken with sincerity, can reach farther than a dozen demands to open up. But here's the catch. To read emotions in others, you first have to master them in yourself. You can't see clearly through fogged glass. If your own feelings run unchecked, you'll project them onto others. You'll misread their fear as anger because you're angry. You'll mistake their silence for rejection because you fear rejection. Your perception will be colored by your own unexamined emotions. So, the work begins inside. Start noticing your own triggers. Do you get defensive when you feel unseen? Do you raise your voice when you feel powerless? Do you withdraw when you feel ashamed? Awareness is not about judging yourself. It's about naming what's real. Because once you can name your own emotions, they lose their grip on you. And once you see them clearly in yourself, you begin to see them with clarity in others. Here's a simple exercise. Throughout the day, ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Go beyond the basics of happy, sad, angry. Try to name the subtler shades: disappointment, relief, anticipation, shame, pride. The more precise your vocabulary, the sharper your awareness, because language shapes perception. If you only have 3 words for feelings, you'll only notice them in broad strokes. If you have 30, you'll notice nuance. And nuance is everything in connection. Now, imagine carrying that awareness into a conversation. A friend tells you they're fine, but you notice their tone is flat. You ask yourself, are they tired, sad, or quietly resentful? Instead of accepting the word at face value, you gently test with presence. You don't seem fine. Want to share what's on your mind? That shift, naming what you sense, not accusing, creates a bridge. Emotional awareness also teaches you patience. Emotions are like waves. They rise, crest, and fall. Most people try to stop the wave, to push it down or escape it. But when you understand emotions, you let the wave pass. You know that anger expressed will soften, that tears shed will lighten, that fear voiced will shrink. Instead of resisting the wave, you stand steady, offering a shoreline for others to land on. This makes you a safe person. Safe people are rare. They're the ones who don't overreact when you show your vulnerability. They're the ones who don't rush to fix you or dismiss you. They're the ones who can sit with your fear, your sadness, your shame, without flinching. And because safe people are rare, they're magnetic. Everyone wants to be around someone who sees their emotions and doesn't run. But awareness isn't just empathy, it's also protection. When you can read emotions clearly, you see manipulation for what it is. You notice when guilt is being used as a weapon. You notice when flattery is shallow. You notice when "I'm just joking" hides cruelty. Emotional awareness doesn't mean you let everything slide. It means you know when to extend compassion and when to set a boundary. Think about leadership. A good leader doesn't just issue commands. They sense the mood of their team. They know when stress is building, when morale is low, when fear is spreading. They don't just react to complaints. They respond to the emotions behind them. And that's why their people trust them, not because they have all the answers, but because they understand what their people feel. Or think about intimacy. The strongest relationships aren't built on endless talk, but on deep emotional attunement. When you can sense your partner's mood shift before they say a word, when you can hold them through silence, when you can name what they're afraid to admit, you create a bond that words alone can't hold. That's emotional intelligence in its purest form. So how do you build this in daily life? Start with curiosity. Instead of assuming, ask yourself quietly, what might this person be feeling? Don't rush to solve. Don't rush to label. Just wonder. Then watch for patterns. Notice how someone's tone changes when money comes up. Notice how their shoulders tense when family is mentioned. Notice the moments their energy rises or falls. Over time, you'll see threads, and those threads will weave the deeper story. Also, practice empathy through imagination. Put yourself in their shoes. Ask, if I were them, in this situation, what might I feel? You'll never be 100% right, but the effort shifts your presence. People feel it when you're trying to understand, even if you don't have it perfect, and that effort alone builds connection. But above all, remember this: emotions are not problems to be solved. They're experiences to be felt. You don't have to fix someone's sadness. You don't have to erase someone's fear. You don't have to chase away someone's shame. Your job is simpler and far more powerful: to see it, to hold it, to let it breathe. Because in the end, emotional awareness isn't just about others, it's about you. When you can name and navigate your own emotions, you stop being tossed around by them. You stop letting anger wreck your relationships, fear hold you back, shame silence your truth. You become steady inside, and from that steadiness, you connect to others in ways that feel almost effortless. So as you move forward, remind yourself, every face, every word, every silence hides a story of feeling. Train yourself to notice, not just the surface, but the pulse beneath. When you can see the heart behind the mask, you will hold a kind of insight that transforms every relationship, every conversation, every moment of connection. By now, you've seen how awareness deepens your presence, how observation, reading between the lines, responding calmly, and recognizing emotions change the way you connect. But there's another level, one most people skip past: listening. Not just hearing, not just waiting for your turn to speak, but truly listening. Listening is not passive. It's one of the most powerful acts of social intelligence you can master. Here's the hard truth. Most people think they're good listeners, but they're not. They hear the words, yes, but their mind is racing ahead, preparing their next reply, or drifting to their own story. They nod, they they smile, but they're not really there. You know this feeling, when someone pretends to listen but you can feel their attention sliding off you. It leaves you emptier than silence. Real listening feels different. It's like stepping into a quiet space where, for once, you're fully seen. The other person isn't trying to fix you, outshine you, or rush you. They're simply there, holding what you're saying with care. That kind of listening is magnetic. People remember it for years. Let's break it down. There are levels of listening. At the shallowest level, there's surface listening. You catch the words, you nod, but you're barely engaged. This is the kind of listening people do when they're glued to their phone or waiting for their turn. Then there's active listening. You're focused. You repeat back what you hear. You make eye contact. This already sets you apart. But beyond that is empathetic listening, where you hear not just the words, but the feelings behind them. You sense the tone, the pauses, the unspoken. And then there's soulful listening, the rarest form, where you let someone pour out their truth without agenda, without judgment, without interruption. That's the level that changes lives. Imagine a friend coming to you after a long day. They complain about their boss, about deadlines, about exhaustion. A surface listener just nods. An active listener might say, "So your boss overloaded you today." Better, but still shallow. An empathetic listener notices the tremble in their voice, the slump in their shoulders, and says, "It sounds like you're not just tired, you're feeling invisible." Suddenly, the friend exhales. They feel understood, not just heard. That's the gift of listening. You don't give advice. You don't solve. You don't dominate. You give presence. And presence is priceless. But why is it so rare? Because true listening requires ego to step aside. Your need to prove, to advise, to compare. It all has to quiet down. When someone says, "I'm stressed," the ego wants to say, "Me too. Let me tell you about my stress." When someone says, "I feel lost," the ego wants to say, "Here's what you should do." But the wise listener resists. They let the other person's story stay center stage. They don't hijack it. They don't rush it. They simply allow it. Here's a truth worth holding. People don't always want solutions. More often, they want space to process, to be heard, to feel less alone. The moment you stop treating listening as a waiting room for your own words and start treating it as an offering, everything changes. Now, let's talk about the body of listening. Your posture matters. If you're leaning back, arms crossed, eyes darting, people won't open up. But lean in slightly. Keep your body open, your gaze steady, and your silence patient. And suddenly the conversation deepens. Listening is physical as much as it is mental. Your silence matters too. Many people panic when there's a pause and jump in to fill it. But silence, is where the other person gathers the courage to say the deeper thing. If you rush in, you cut them off before they get there. Let the pause breathe. Give them time. Often, what comes after the silence is the truth they didn't know how to share at first. Tone also plays a role. Simple phrases like, "I hear you," "That must be tough," or "Tell me more," can open doors. But only if your tone carries genuine warmth. If you say it flatly or distractedly, it lands empty. Listening isn't just about ears, it's about energy. People feel whether you're truly present or just pretending. And here's something subtle but profound. The quality of your listening changes the quality of their speaking. When you listen deeply, people discover thoughts and feelings they didn't even know they had. Your presence draws it out of them. They say, "I've never told anyone this before," or "I didn't realize I felt that way until now." That's the power of listening. It doesn't just receive, it reveals. So how do you practice? Start small. The next time someone talks to you, resist the urge to interrupt, to fix, to compare. Instead, ask one gentle question that invites them to go deeper. "What do you mean by that?" Or, "How did that make you feel?" Then stop. Let them answer fully. And when they finish, instead of rushing to your point, let the silence breathe. Then ask again. "Anything else?" You'll be surprised how often the real story comes after the first one. Another practice. When you're in conversation, focus fully on them. No phone, no multitasking. Imagine their words are fragile and you're holding them carefully in your hands. That shift in attention changes everything. Listening also applies to conflict. Most arguments aren't about the issue at hand. They're about the need to feel heard. When someone shouts, "You never listen," they're not asking for you to agree. They're asking for you to see them. If you can drop your defense and say, "Okay, I hear you. Tell me what I'm missing," you'll often watch the fight dissolve, because the fight wasn't about facts. It was about feeling invisible. And this doesn't just help others, it transforms you. When you listen deeply, you stop rushing. You stop centering yourself. You start living in the present moment. Your relationships deepen, your stress lessens, your influence grows. People trust those who listen, because listening is proof of respect. In leadership, listening is the bedrock. A leader who listens earns loyalty. A leader who only talks earns fear or apathy. In friendship, listening is the glue. Without it, bonds fade. In love, listening is intimacy itself. Without it, even the strongest attraction weakens. Think of the people you cherish most. Chances are, they're the ones who listened to you when you needed it most. Not the ones with the smartest advice, but the ones who sat with you, gave you their presence, and made you feel less alone. So let this truth sink in. Listening is not passive. Listening is power. It's influence without force, healing without fixing, love without condition. It's the quiet skill that turns ordinary conversations into sacred ground. And when you give someone the gift of real listening, you give them something the world rarely offers, the chance to be fully themselves, without fear, without judgment, without interruption. That gift costs you nothing, but to them, it's everything. You've learned how to listen in ways that most people never do, how to sit with silence, how to catch the emotion behind the words, how to make someone feel truly seen. But listening is only half the conversation. The other half is knowing how to ask questions, not ordinary questions, but better questions. Because the questions you ask shape the depth of connection you create. Most people don't realize how much their questions matter. They toss out quick ones like, "How are you?" or "What's new?" without thinking. And what happens? They get the same flat answers. "Fine. Nothing much. Just busy." Shallow questions bring shallow answers. But when you ask better questions, you open doors people didn't even know they were ready to walk through. Think of questions like keys. A closed person is like a locked room, guarded, cautious, not sure if they can trust you. A careless question is like rattling the doorknob, loud, obvious, and unwelcome. But the right question, asked with presence and care, slips the lock quietly, gently, and the door opens. Suddenly, you're not standing outside anymore. You're invited in. So, what makes a better question? First, it invites more than facts. It invites feelings. Asking, "Did you like the trip?" gets you, "Yeah, it was good." Asking, "What moment from the trip stuck with you most?" opens a memory, a story, maybe even a laugh. Facts skim the surface. Feelings take you to the heart. Second, better questions are open-ended. Closed questions die quickly. "Did you have a good day?" Yes. Conversation over. But open questions stretch out. What was the best part of your day? What challenged you today? Suddenly, there's room to explore, to expand, to reveal. Third, better questions show genuine curiosity. People can sense when your question is just filler. They can also sense when your question comes from true interest. The difference is energy. So, what do you do? Feels empty. What led you to choose that path? Feels alive. The first shrinks the conversation. The second invites a story. Let's go deeper. The most powerful questions aren't about information at all. They're about invitation. They say to the other person, "I want to know who you are, not just what you've done." And people crave that. They're tired of small talk. They want someone to reach beneath the surface. Think about someone you care about. Instead of asking, "How was work?" you could ask, "What gave you energy today, and what drained you?" Instead of, "Did you enjoy the party?" you could ask, "Who did you feel most connected to tonight?" These kinds of questions don't just gather details. They draw out truths. But here's a warning. Better questions are not interrogation. If you fire off one after another, people feel pressured, even trapped. A good question is like planting a seed. You drop it gently, you give it space, and you let it grow. Sometimes they answer right away. Sometimes they circle back to it later. Either way, you don't rush. The secret is patience. Ask one thoughtful question, then stay quiet. Let the silence do its work. People often need space to find their answer, and when they finally speak, what they share is deeper than if you had filled the pause. Another key, timing. A good question asked at the wrong time falls flat. If someone is upset, asking, "What's the lesson here?" is tone deaf. In that moment, the better question is, do you want me to listen, or do you want advice? That simple choice respects their state and gives them control. And sometimes, the best question is gentle curiosity about the unspoken. If someone says, "I'm just tired," you might quietly ask, "Tired in your body, or tired in your heart?" That difference opens a door. Or if someone laughs in a way that feels heavy, you might say softly, "What's behind that laugh?" Questions like these don't accuse, they invite. The beauty of asking better questions is that it transforms ordinary moments into extraordinary ones. A walk with a friend becomes a conversation that uncovers dreams. A dinner with family becomes a space where hidden feelings are finally spoken. A casual chat with a coworker becomes a turning point for trust. This skill also makes you unforgettable. People won't remember every word you say, but they will remember how you made them feel. When your questions draw out stories they've never told. When your presence makes them reflect in ways they never have. You stand out, not because you impressed them, but because you gave them a gift, the chance to be known. And let's be honest, asking better questions doesn't just deepen others, it deepens you. Every time you ask with curiosity, you learn, you expand, you see the world through new eyes. You discover experiences you've never lived, emotions you've never named, perspectives you've never considered. Curiosity is not just a bridge outward, it's a path inward. Here's a practice for you. Over the next few days, replace your small talk questions with deeper ones. Instead of, "How's it going?" ask, "What's been on your mind lately?" Instead of, "Busy day," ask, "What made today meaningful for you?" Instead of, "What do you do?" ask, "What do you enjoy most about what you do?" Notice how people respond. Notice how their energy shifts. Notice how the conversation flows longer, warmer, richer. And don't just save this for close relationships. Practice with strangers too. A barista, a driver, a colleague you barely know. Small but thoughtful questions can brighten someone's day, even change it. What's something you're looking forward to this week is simple, but it plants light where there was none. Asking better questions also sharpens your leadership. A leader who asks, "What's wrong with you?" breeds fear. A leader who asks, "What's getting in your way?" breeds trust. A parent who asks, "Why did you mess up?" closes their child. A parent who asks, "What did you learn from this?" opens them. Questions shape culture. Questions shape relationships. Questions shape futures. And here's the ultimate truth. Asking better questions is less about technique and more about heart. When your heart is curious, your questions naturally deepen. When your heart is present, your questions naturally invite. When your heart is open, your questions naturally heal. So remember this. Questions are not just tools of conversation. They're bridges of connection. They don't just uncover facts, they uncover souls. And when you ask with presence, patience, and genuine curiosity, you become the rare person who helps others discover themselves. That is the true art of asking better questions, not to impress, not to collect data, but to create connection that lingers long. Trust. It's the quiet force that makes every connection possible. Without it, even the best words, the sharpest insights, and the deepest empathy fall flat. With it, doors open, walls come down, and relationships, whether personal, professional, or fleeting, gain a depth that feels almost unshakable. But here's the truth. Trust isn't given just because you ask for it. Trust is earned, slowly, through consistency, honesty, and presence. Picture this. You're walking down a dimly lit street at night. A stranger approaches, smiling broadly, insisting, "You can trust me." Do you believe them? Of course not. Trust isn't built by declaration. It's built by demonstration. 1,000 small signals, aligned over time, create the foundation. The way someone shows up when they say they will. The way their words match their actions. The way they stay present, even in difficulty. Trust grows in quiet moments, more than grand gestures. It grows in the way you remember someone's story and ask about it later, in the way you keep their secrets without using them as currency, in the way you admit your own mistakes without shifting blame. These are not flashy acts, but they're unforgettable. People may not recall the exact words you spoke, but they will remember how safe they felt with you. Now, think about presence. Trust thrives when you are fully here, not scattered or distracted. Imagine sitting across from someone who keeps glancing at their phone. Do you feel valued? No. Their body is present, but their mind is elsewhere. Compare that to someone who leans in, who locks eyes, who listens without rush. That simple act of presence says louder than words. You matter. You are safe here. And safety is the soil where trust grows. Consistency also shapes trust. People want to know what version of you will show up today. Are you steady, or are you unpredictable? If you're kind one day and dismissive the next, people hesitate. They don't lean on you, because they never know if you'll hold or crumble. But when your actions form a pattern of steadiness, when your kindness repeats, when your reliability repeats, then slowly, people begin to rest in your presence. Honesty plays its part too, and not just the easy kind of honesty. Not just telling the truth when it's convenient, but the hard honesty of saying, I don't know, or I was wrong, or that hurt me. Many think honesty will break trust, but the opposite is true. Honesty strengthens trust because it proves you'd rather risk discomfort than hide behind a mask. And people trust those who live without masks. But let's face it, trust is fragile. It takes months or years to build, but a moment to shatter. That's why protecting it matters. If you betray a confidence, if you speak with two faces, if you disappear when things get hard, people remember. And rebuilding trust is like repairing shattered glass. Possible, yes, but never quite the same. The cracks remain. Here's the deeper truth, though. Trust isn't just about others. It's about you. You cannot build real trust if you don't trust yourself. If you constantly break your own promises, if you ignore your own truth, if you abandon yourself at the first sign of conflict, then others will sense the instability. Self-trust is the anchor. It means keeping your word to yourself. It means listening to your own instincts, honoring your own boundaries, standing in your own truth, even when it's hard. When you trust yourself, others feel it in your steadiness. Let's bring this to life. Imagine two leaders. One projects bravado, constantly promising results they can't deliver. The team listens politely, but their eyes tell the truth. They don't believe him. Another leader speaks plainly. We don't have all the answers yet, but here's what we're doing, and here's what I expect of myself. That kind of honesty, paired with consistent action, creates loyalty, because people trust what is real more than what is impressive. Or picture a relationship. A partner says, "Of course I'll be there," but arrives late, distracted, or not at all. Each broken promise chips away at trust, like rust-eating metal. Eventually, the bond weakens. But another partner says, "I can't promise I'll always get it right, but I promise I'll always be honest with you." That honesty, lived out, builds something stronger than perfection. It builds reliability. Trust also requires boundaries. It may sound strange, but saying no builds trust as much as saying yes. When you say yes to everything, people sense it's not real. They wonder what you truly want. but when you can say no clearly, kindly, and without guilt, people believe your yes. Boundaries show self-respect, and self-respect invites respect from others. So how do you build trust every day? Start small. Keep your promises, even the quiet ones. If you say you'll call, call. If you say you'll show up, show up. If you say you'll listen, listen. Small acts of reliability create big trust over time. Be honest, not perfect. Admit mistakes, own them. Apologize when needed, not with excuses but with sincerity. Protect what people share with you. Hold it like sacred ground. And above all, stay present, because presence is the strongest proof of care. And when trust is built, everything changes. Conversations deepen, conflicts heal faster, relationships grow roots that storms can't rip out. Influence expands, not because you force it, but because people willingly lean on you. They know that in a world of noise and half-truths, you are steady, honest, present. This is the gift of trust. It's not flashy. It doesn't demand attention, but it holds lives together. And if you can master the quiet art of building it, through presence, honesty, consistency, and self-trust, you will create boundaries. At first, the word might sound harsh, like a wall or a rejection. But in truth, boundaries are not barriers. They are bridges. They are the invisible lines that keep relationships healthy, that protect your energy, that make your yeses meaningful and your nos respected. Without boundaries, connections become blurry and heavy. With them, you create space for trust, respect, and freedom. Think of a river. When it flows without banks, it floods and destroys. But when the banks are strong, the river runs clear and steady, giving life to everything along its path. Boundaries are those banks. They don't stop the flow. They shape it, guide it, make it sustainable. Without them, your energy floods everywhere, uncontrolled, and eventually, you feel drained, resentful, even invisible. Why is setting boundaries so hard? Because many of us were taught that saying no is selfish, that self-sacrifice is noble, that good people bend until they break. But here's the truth. A yes that comes from guilt or fear is not kindness. It's compliance. Real kindness requires choice, and choice requires boundaries. Picture this. A friend constantly calls you at midnight to unload their problems. You're exhausted, but you answer anyway, night after night, because you don't want to disappoint them. Outwardly, you seem supportive. Inwardly, you're drained, resentful, even dreading their calls. That's not connection. It's depletion. Now imagine instead you say, gently but firmly, I care about you, but I can't take calls that late. Let's talk earlier in the day. At first, it might feel uncomfortable, but over time, the friendship shifts to healthier ground. You protect your energy, and your friend learns to respect it. That is the quiet power of boundaries. Boundaries also reveal truth. Without them, people never know where you stand. They guess, they assume, they push until you break. But when you set a boundary, you teach them how to treat you. You show them what matters to you, and those who care will adjust, while those who only took advantage will fall away. Either way, your life becomes clearer. But boundaries are not just about saying no. They're about saying yes, with integrity. When you decline what drains you, you free yourself to say yes to what fuels you. You stop scattering your energy and start channeling it where it matters, to the people, projects, and passions that align with your values. Your no protects your yes. Boundaries also make love deeper, not weaker. Think of a relationship where one partner says yes to everything, even things that hurt them, just to avoid conflict. Over time, resentment builds, honesty fades, and the connection weakens. Now imagine a relationship where both partners can say, "I need space right now," or "I don't feel comfortable with that." That honesty may sting at first, but it creates safety, because real intimacy is not built on pleasing, it's built on truth. How do you set boundaries in practice? Start with clarity. You can't communicate what you haven't defined. Ask yourself, what drains me? What energizes me? What behaviors cross my lines? Then put those answers into words, simple and clear. Next, communicate calmly. Boundaries shouted in anger sound like attack. Boundaries spoken with calmness sound like respect. For example, "I can't commit to that project right now," or "I need time alone to recharge." Simple, firm, respectful. And here's the secret. Boundaries are not ultimatums. They're invitations to healthier connection. If someone responds with anger, it reveals their immaturity, not your wrongness. If they respect it, the relationship strengthens. Boundaries are like filters. They keep out what poisons you and let in what nourishes you. There's also an internal side to boundaries, what you allow from yourself. Do you constantly overwork, ignore your own needs, drown in guilt when you rest? Then you're violating your own boundaries. Setting them means saying no, not just to others, but to the parts of yourself that push you past healthy limits. Self-boundaries are acts of self-respect. And remember, boundaries are not rigid walls. They can shift with context. The boundary you set at work may differ from the one you set with family. The line you hold today may soften tomorrow if trust grows. Flexibility is not weakness, it's wisdom. Boundaries are meant to evolve with your life, not chain you in place. Let's look at leadership. A leader without boundaries burns out, micromanages, and loses perspective. But a leader with boundaries delegates wisely, protects their energy, and models balance for their team. Or take parenting. A parent who says yes to every demand raises entitled children. But a parent who sets loving boundaries raises children who understand respect, patience, and gratitude. Boundaries teach. And what about you? Think of a time you said yes when everything in you wanted to say no. How did it feel afterward? Now think of a time you said no and stood firm. At first it may have felt scary, but afterward, didn't you feel lighter, freer, stronger? That's the energy boundaries give you. So here's the truth to carry with you. Saying no is not rejection. Saying no is self-respect. Boundaries are not selfish. They're sacred. They protect your energy, your time, your heart. They allow your yes to be real, your love to be free, your presence to be whole. Without them, you lose yourself. With them, you find yourself. And when you live with boundaries, people will know something rare about you, that your care is real, your yes is honest, your presence is chosen, and that makes every connection deeper, stronger, and more alive. There's a space between what happens to you and how you respond to it. In that space lives your power. Most people never enter it. They leap from trigger to reaction without pause, like flint sparking into fire at the slightest strike. But if you can step into that space, if you can master the pause, you gain emotional control. And emotional control is one of the most magnetic qualities a person can have. Think about the people you admire most. Chances are, They aren't the ones who explode at the smallest inconvenience or collapse under every wave of stress. They're the ones who hold steady, even in chaos. They don't deny their feelings. They manage them. They don't let anger, fear, or pride drive the wheel. They acknowledge the storm, but they choose how to sail through it. That steadiness makes them trustworthy. It makes others want to lean on them. Here's the truth. Emotions are not enemies. Anger, fear, jealousy, shame. They aren't problems to eliminate. They're signals, like alarms flashing in the dark. The problem isn't feeling them. The problem is letting them run your life unchecked. Emotional control doesn't mean suppressing feelings or pretending they don't exist. It means learning to feel fully without being ruled. Let's put it into a scenario. Someone criticizes you in a meeting, publicly. The immediate surge is heat in your chest, a flash of defensiveness, maybe even the urge to snap back. Most people follow that urge. They lash out, and the room fills with tension. But imagine you pause, you breathe, you let the first wave roll through without riding it. Then, with calm voice and steady eyes, you say, "I hear your concern. Can you clarify what you meant?" Instantly, the energy shifts. You're not crushed by the criticism, nor are you consumed by it. You're above it, guiding the moment instead of being dragged by it. That pause is small in time, but huge in power. It's the difference between reaction and response. Reaction is reflex, response is choice, and choice is what gives you control. But control doesn't come out of nowhere. It comes from awareness. You can't pause if you don't recognize the signals early. Start noticing how emotions show up in your body. Does your jaw tighten when you're angry? Does your chest sink when you're ashamed? Does your breathing speed up when you're anxious? These physical cues are early warnings. The sooner you notice them, the sooner you can pause before the emotion takes over. Breathing is your anchor here. Slow, deep breaths reset the nervous system. When anger surges, your body prepares for fight or flight. But when you breathe deliberately, you tell your body, it's safe, you're in control. A single slow inhale and exhale can widen that precious space between trigger and response. Another key is reframing. Emotions often come from the story you tell yourself about an event, not just the event itself. Someone cuts you off in traffic. One story is, "They disrespected me on purpose." Cue rage. Another story is, "Maybe they're rushing to the hospital." Cue compassion. Same event, different meaning, different emotion. By shifting the story, you shift the feeling. But let's be real. Sometimes emotions feel overwhelming, like a wave too strong to resist. What do you do then? First, don't judge yourself. You're human. Emotional control is not perfection, it's practice. Second, create outlets. Journal the storm out of your head onto paper. Move your body. Let the energy release. Talk to someone safe, not to dump on them, but to process. The goal isn't to erase emotion, it's to express it without harm. Now let's talk about presence. People with emotional control change the energy of a room. Imagine a crisis at work. Everything's falling apart. Deadlines missed, tempers flaring. One person enters, calm, grounded, steady. They don't deny the problem. They don't panic. They bring clarity. They slow the pace. Their calm becomes contagious. Suddenly, others breathe easier, think clearer, find solutions. That's the influence of controlled emotions. Relationships thrive on this too. In arguments, emotional control stops escalation. Instead of shouting over each other, One person says, "I need a moment to cool down. I want to talk about this without hurting you." That pause prevents words that can't be unsaid. It shows care in the heat of conflict, and that deepens trust. Here's the paradox. Emotional control doesn't make you cold. It makes you more available. When you're not hijacked by anger or fear, you can actually connect deeper. You can hear others more clearly, respond with empathy, choose words that heal instead of harm. You're more present, not less. But what about authenticity? Doesn't controlling your emotions make you fake? No. Suppression is fake. Pretending you're fine when you're not. Smiling when you're breaking. That's false. Control, on the other hand, is choosing honesty with wisdom. It's saying, "I'm angry, but I'm going to express it in a way that builds, not destroys." That's real. That's strength. Let's try a simple practice. The next time you feel triggered, name the emotion out loud in your mind. Anger, sadness, fear. Naming creates distance. It shifts you from being inside the emotion to observing it. Then breathe. 3 slow breaths. Then choose. Do I speak now? Or do I wait? Do I react? Or do I respond? That small habit, repeated, rewires your brain. Over time, the pause becomes natural. And here's the reward. When you master emotional control, people feel safe with you. They know you won't explode unpredictably. They know you won't collapse under pressure. They know you can hold space for them without making it about you. Safety builds trust, and trust builds influence. So remember, emotions are not chains. They are signals. You don't silence them, and you don't serve them. You listen, you pause, and then you choose. That choice is your freedom. That choice is your power. And the more you live from that space between trigger and response, the more others will see you not just as calm, but as quietly unshakable. Someone whose presence steadies the storm instead of feeding it. Influence is often misunderstood. Many think it comes from volume, from dominance, from being the loudest voice in the room. But real influence doesn't shout. It doesn't push or force. Real influence moves quietly, like gravity, steady, unseen, undeniable. You don't have to announce it. People feel it. They're drawn to it. They follow it. Not because you demand it, but because your presence makes them want to. Think of the people who have left the deepest mark on you. Were they the ones who constantly demanded attention, who bragged, who tried to prove their worth in every sentence? Or were they the ones who didn't need to prove anything? The ones whose calmness, clarity, and integrity made you listen? That's quiet influence. Quiet influence starts with integrity. When your words and actions align, people trust you. You don't have to convince them. You embody the message. A person who preaches honesty but gossips loses influence instantly. But someone who speaks gently, lives honestly, and shows consistency becomes magnetic. People feel the truth in their presence before a word is spoken. Another core of quiet influence is energy. Walk into a room tense and frantic, and people absorb it. Walk in grounded, calm, and focused, and people absorb that instead. Humans are wired to mirror the strongest energy in the space. If yours is steady, others stabilize around you. Influence isn't about what you say first. It's about the atmosphere you carry with you. Let's imagine 2 leaders. One storms into a meeting, barking orders, interrupting, filling every silence with commands. People obey, but only out of fear. When he leaves, they exhale relief. The other leader enters, greets people warmly, listens first, and then speaks with clarity and conviction. People don't just obey, they align. They want to follow. The first leader forces compliance. The second inspires commitment. That's the difference between loud power and quiet influence. Quiet influence also comes from listening. Most assume leaders must talk more. In truth, the most influential voices often listen more than they speak. Why? Because people feel valued when they're heard. And when they feel valued, they open, they engage, they follow. Influence is not about how much you say. It's about how deeply you connect. There's also the strength of restraint. You don't have to answer every jab, correct every mistake, or dominate every conversation. Sometimes silence has more weight than words. A pause before responding, a steady look instead of a quick retort, communicates more influence than a flood of speech. Silence says, "I am not shaken. I choose when to act." But quiet influence isn't passive. It's active, intentional, and strong. It's choosing your words carefully, shaping the room through presence, leading by example. It's not withdrawing. It's directing energy with precision. Like an archer drawing a bow, quiet influence pulls back with control, so that when you do speak, your words land with impact. In relationships, quiet influence builds safety. Imagine a friend who never judges, who listens without rushing, who speaks truth gently. Over time, you lean on them more, not because they push, but because they hold space. Or think of a parent who doesn't scream to discipline, but guides with steady firmness. The child respects them, not out of fear, but out of trust. Quiet influence earns loyalty. Here's the paradox. The less you try to impress, the more impressive you become. People sense desperation, and they pull away. But when you rest in your values, when you're steady in your presence, people lean in. Influence grows not by chasing it, but by living in alignment with who you are. Practical steps. First, slow down, speak less, listen more. Let your silence carry weight instead of rushing to fill it. Second, practice alignment. Match your actions to your words. Every broken promise weakens influence. Every kept promise strengthens it. Third, manage your energy. Don't bring chaos where steadiness is needed. Breathe, ground yourself, and let your calm ripple outward. And remember, quiet influence doesn't mean invisibility. It doesn't mean shrinking or hiding. It means power without force, confidence without arrogance, presence without noise. It means you don't need to announce who you are. People see it in how you move, how you treat others, how you hold yourself in both calm and storm. The world is full of loud voices demanding attention, but the ones who truly shape lives are those who master quiet influence. Their presence speaks louder than their volume. Their integrity speaks louder than their words. And their calm steadiness shifts rooms, hearts, and futures. Be that presence. Be that steady force. And you'll find that the influence you carry reaches farther than you ever imagined. Not because you demanded it, but because you embodied it. Conflict. No matter how kind, calm, or socially intelligent you are, it will find you. Because where people gather, differences collide. Different needs, different values, different ways of seeing the world. Most avoid conflict like fire, fearing it will burn bridges and leave only ashes. Others charge into it recklessly, sparking explosions that wound everyone involved. But here's the secret. Conflict isn't the end of connection. When handled with skill, conflict can actually deepen it. Repair is where the strongest bonds are formed. Think about broken bones. When they heal, the point of the break often becomes stronger than it was before. The same is true in relationships. A clash, handled poorly, weakens trust, but a clash, handled with awareness and care, rebuilds trust on even stronger ground. The conflict itself isn't the problem. The way you move through it is. So how do you turn conflict into connection? The first step is to reframe it. Instead of seeing conflict as a threat, see it as information. It's a signal that needs, feelings, or expectations have gone unmet. Beneath every argument lies something deeper, a fear of being unseen, unheard, or unloved. If you only fight on the surface, about dishes, deadlines, details, you miss the root. But if you listen beneath, you find the truth. Let's imagine a couple arguing about chores. On the surface, it's about dishes in the sink. But underneath, one partner feels unappreciated, unseen. The other feels judged, never good enough. If they only trade accusations, the fight escalates. But if one pauses and says, "This isn't about dishes, is it? What's really hurting you?" Suddenly the conversation shifts. The surface conflict becomes an entryway to the deeper wound. And when the wound is named, healing can begin. Another key is emotional regulation. Conflict often brings heat. Voices rise, words sharpen, patience thins. If you meet fire with fire, you get an inferno. But if you bring water, calmness, pause, softer tone, you cool the flames. That doesn't mean letting yourself be walked over. It means refusing to escalate. Sometimes the most powerful move in conflict is simply lowering your voice when theirs gets louder. It disarms instead of fuels. Listening plays a huge role too. Most conflicts spiral because neither side feels heard. Both talk, both defend, both attack. But no one truly listens. Imagine instead you say, "I want to understand your side fully before I explain mine." That simple act, listening first, can dissolve defensiveness. Because when someone feels heard, their fists unclench, their tone softens, their heart opens. Apologies also matter, but not the hollow kind. "Sorry if you felt that way." That's not an apology. That's blame disguised. Real apologies take ownership. "I see how my words hurt you. That wasn't my intention, but it was my impact. I'm sorry." Notice the difference? One dismisses, the other heals. But repair doesn't stop at apology. It needs action. If you broke trust by being late repeatedly, don't just say sorry. Show up on time consistently. Words start the repair. Actions complete it. Now let's shift to groups. Conflict isn't just one-to-one. It ripples through teams, families, communities. In groups, conflict can split people into sides, but a skilled person can become a bridge. They don't take sides. They hold space. They acknowledge the concerns of each party, reflect them back, and search for shared values beneath. This transforms me versus you into us solving this together. Here's a truth to hold close. Conflict is often a sign of care. If people truly didn't care, they wouldn't argue. They'd disconnect. The very fact that someone fights with you often means the bond matters to them. Recognizing this shifts your perspective. Instead of seeing conflict as proof of weakness, see it as proof of investment. And with the right approach, that investment can grow stronger. Let's go practical. Next time conflict rises, pause, breathe. Ask yourself, what's the deeper need behind their words? Is it respect, recognition, safety? Then ask, what's the deeper need behind mine? Once both are named, You move from fighting each other to fighting for understanding. Another practice. Instead of saying, "You always," or "You never," use "I feel." "You never listen" sparks defense. "I feel unheard when I'm interrupted" sparks empathy. Same frustration, different frame. Conflict also teaches resilience. Each time you move through it with care, you strengthen your ability to face tension without fear. You stop running from hard conversations. You learn that honesty, even messy honesty, can coexist with love, and that realization frees you. So don't fear conflict. Don't seek it either. But when it comes, see it for what it is, a chance to understand more deeply, to heal more fully, to connect more honestly. If you master conflict repair, you'll become the rare person who doesn't just survive clashes, but transforms them into closeness. And those who can do that, those who can turn fractures into foundations, are the ones people trust, not just in peace, but in storm. Every group has its own rhythm. Walk into a room and you can feel it. The tension, the warmth, the energy that hums beneath the surface. Sometimes it's light, collaborative, alive. Other times it's sharp, competitive, uneasy. Social intelligence at its highest level means not just reading individuals, but reading the entire room. Because influence doesn't only happen one-to-one, it happens in the collective energy of groups. Think of a symphony. Each instrument plays its part. But the music isn't just in the single notes. It's in how they blend, how they rise and fall together. A room is like that symphony. The way people shift in their seats, the tone of their laughter, the silence between words. These are instruments of atmosphere. And if you can hear them, you can adjust your own tone to harmonize, calm, or shift the energy. The first step to reading the room is presence. You can't notice the energy if your mind is elsewhere. Too often, people walk into a group thinking only of themselves. What will I say? How do I look? Will they like me? But when your focus is inward, you miss the outward signals. Reading the room requires lifting your eyes, softening your mind, and observing without rush. Scan for patterns. Are people leaning in or leaning back? Are they animated or subdued? Are they interrupting each other or leaving long pauses? These cues tell you the unspoken mood. A room buzzing with excitement calls for calm, grounding energy to balance it. A room heavy with silence calls for lightness to open it. The socially intelligent person doesn't bulldoze in with their own agenda. They adapt, like water, taking the shape of the container. But adaptation doesn't mean losing yourself. It means meeting the group where it is, then gently guiding it where it needs to go. If you enter a tense meeting and add your own tension, the fire grows. But if you enter with calm clarity, you shift the balance. Slowly, people match your steadiness. That's not manipulation. It's leadership through presence. Pay attention to subtle hierarchies too. In every group, certain voices hold more sway. Sometimes it's the official leader. Other times, it's the quiet person everyone glances at before reacting. Spotting this quickly helps you navigate. If you win the trust of the true influencers, whether loud or silent, you guide the group more effectively. Timing matters as well. Every room has rhythms of when to speak and when to hold silence. Jump in too early, and your words fall flat. Wait for the right pause, and your words carry weight. Think of conversation as a dance. Step in when the music calls, not when you're impatient. There's also the question of energy contribution. Ask yourself, what does this room need right now? If it's dull and heavy, Maybe it needs humor, warmth, or fresh perspective. If it's chaotic and scattered, maybe it needs grounding, clarity, or focus. The key is not to match blindly, but to add what balances. Too much sameness stagnates a room. The right counter-energy refreshes it. Imagine walking into a brainstorming session. Everyone is stuck, frustrated. You could add to the frustration, or you could inject curiosity. What if we looked at this from the opposite angle? Suddenly, the air shifts. Or picture a family dinner where tension simmers. Instead of fueling it, you ask a gentle, connecting question that steers attention to gratitude. One spark can redirect the whole flow, but reading the room also requires humility. Sometimes the best move is to step back, to observe, to let the group's energy play out before acting. If you try to force it too soon, you become noise. If you wait, listen, and then step in with precision, you become the voice that carries weight. And here's something deeper. Rooms remember. Just like individuals, groups carry memory. A workplace team remembers if past meetings ended in conflict. A family remembers the unspoken dynamics from years ago. These memories shape the energy before a word is spoken. If you can sense that undercurrent, you'll understand why some rooms feel heavy, even when the topic is light. The gift of reading the room is that it allows you to lead without forcing. You don't have to push your way in. You sense, you adjust, and people naturally follow the balance you bring. That's why those with high social intelligence often become informal leaders, not because of title, but because of presence. Here's a practice. When you enter any room, pause. Don't rush to speak. Let your senses scan. Feel the air, the pace, the eyes, the silence. Ask yourself, what's happening beneath the surface here? Then adjust your own energy to serve the room, not just yourself. This doesn't mean pretending. It means amplifying the part of you that the room most needs. Because in the end, groups are like mirrors. They reflect and magnify the energy most present. If yours is grounded, clear, and intentional, you don't just read the room, you reset it. And people remember the one who made the whole space feel safer, lighter, clearer. That's the quiet art of influence at scale. Not domination, not force, just presence, perception, and the courage to bring the energy the moment truly needs. Life is unpredictable. No matter how wise, patient, or socially skilled you become, you will face rejection. You will face judgment. You will give your best and still be misunderstood. Someone will criticize you unfairly, exclude you, or dismiss your presence. And in those moments, your social intelligence will be tested, not in how charming you are, but in how resilient you are. Rejection hurts because it taps into the deepest human fear, the fear of not belonging. Long ago, belonging meant survival. To be cast out of the tribe was to face the wilderness alone. Today, that instinct still pulses in us. A cold glance, a cutting comment, a door closed in your face. It feels bigger than it is because it whispers, "You're not enough." But here's the truth. Rejection is not proof of your lack. Often, it's proof of misalignment. Not every room is your room. Not every person is meant to walk with you. Social intelligence doesn't mean pleasing everyone. It means knowing which connections to nurture and which to release. Think of an actor auditioning. They may hear no dozens of times, not because they lack talent, but because the role requires someone else's look, age, or tone. The rejection isn't about their worth, it's about fit. The same is true in life. Some doors close not to shame you, but to steer you toward the right ones. Judgment, too, is inevitable. People will form opinions without knowing your heart. They'll project their own fears onto you. They'll misunderstand your silence, your boundaries, your choices. Social intelligence doesn't protect you from being judged. It protects you from being defined by it. It teaches you to stand steady in your truth, even when eyes misunderstand you. How do you build resilience here? First, by grounding in self-trust. If you know who you are, rejection cannot erase you. If you trust your own values, judgment cannot control you. Without self-trust, every negative word knocks you down. With it, you bend, but do not break. Second, reframe rejection. Instead of seeing it as, "I'm not good enough," see it as, "This was not my place." When someone pulls away, you gain space to pull closer to those who truly see you. When one opportunity falls, another opens that aligns better with your path. Third, cultivate recovery. Rejection stings. It's okay to admit it. But resilience means not living inside that sting. Cry if you must. Journal, breathe, then rise again. Every rejection survived builds a thicker skin and a softer heart at the same time. Thicker skin to withstand the noise. Softer heart to remain open to the right connections. Let's make this practical. Imagine you're excluded from a group conversation at work. The old story might say, "I don't belong here." But the resilient story says, "This isn't the space where my voice is heard. Let me find where it is." Or picture a friend pulling away. Instead of spiraling into self-blame, you can say, "They're on their path, and I'm on mine. I release them with peace." And here's the beauty. Resilience doesn't just protect you, it makes you magnetic. Because when people see that you don't crumble under criticism, they respect you. When they see that you remain kind, even when excluded, they admire you. When they see that rejection doesn't steal your light, they trust your strength. Finally, let's talk about lasting connection. Beyond the noise of judgment, beyond the sting of rejection, the real goal of social intelligence is to build bonds that endure, not shallow connections that vanish at the first storm, but deep ones that remain steady. How do you create those? Presence, consistency, grace. Presence means showing up fully when you are with someone, not half scrolling, half listening, but giving your whole self in those moments. Consistency means showing up not just once, but again and again, proving reliability over time. Grace means giving space for imperfection, forgiving slips, overlooking flaws, choosing love over keeping score. When you live this way, your connections become roots. They don't topple with wind or weather. They deepen, grow, and sustain you. And at the end of your life, it won't be the number of acquaintances that matters. It will be the few lasting bonds you nurtured with presence, consistency, and grace. So here is the final truth. Rejection will come. Judgment will come. Storms will come. But if you hold fast to self-trust, if you meet rejection with resilience, if you nurture bonds with presence and grace, then nothing can steal your belonging. Because your belonging won't depend on the crowd. It will rest in your core and in the roots you've chosen to grow. That is the quiet legacy of social intelligence. Not how many people you impress, but how many hearts feel safe, seen, and steady in your presence. And that legacy lasts long after words slow down now. Let the words settle. You've traveled through observation, listening, asking, boundaries, presence, leadership, resilience. You've walked through the quiet skills that don't make noise, but leave marks on hearts. And now, at this final moment, take a breath. Let it be long. Let it be steady. Because social intelligence isn't something you finish. It isn't a box to check or a medal to win. It's a way of being, a posture you carry into every room, every conversation, every moment. It's the choice to notice more deeply, to feel more fully, to respond more wisely. Think about what has shifted inside you as you've listened. Maybe you feel calmer, more aware. Maybe you see new possibilities in the way you connect, the way you hold space, the way you lead without force. Let that awareness sink in, not as theory, but as practice. And remember, small steps matter. You don't need to master it all today. Start with one pause before reacting, one moment of real listening, one boundary spoken with clarity, one gentle question that opens someone's heart. These small acts ripple outward. They change not just your relationships, but the atmosphere around you. Over time, people will feel something different in you. They may not have words for it, but they'll sense it. Safety, steadiness, presence. They'll lean closer, not because you demanded it, but because your energy makes them want to. That is the quiet magic of social intelligence. Carry it forward. Let it shape the way you love, the way you lead, the way you live. Because in the end, what people remember is not your status, not your volume, but how you made them feel, safe, seen, understood. That is your legacy. Let it begin now.